Last year I updated the way I animate backgrounds for documents and in banners when doing front-end work for clients. I made a tutorial for animated backgrounds about 3 years ago that was not nearly as easy or slim as the approach that I'll show you today. You can get some really cool looking results when animating backgrounds under your content. I'll also show you the 2013 tutorial that I made for this so you can see the drastic difference in code reduction and easier production in this newer approach. Your backgrounds can animate in any direction, up, down, left, or right, or you can even combine directions to make them go diagonally if you want. And we'll be using the CSS keyframes rule and the background position property to perform this effect. Before we get started in the code, let's take a look at the finished product of some of these effects. Here we have a star field that's animating to the right. Here's a brick wall that's animating left. And here's a wave tile that is animating to the left within a container that can be any size and shape that you want. So you can go across the whole page, or you can contain the animation within any size banner or container that you want. We'll begin with the bare bones of a web document. The first thing we'll do is go into the body element and we'll just put in a div. We'll make sure we close that div. Then we'll give it an ID equal to banner. Now in the CSS portion of our document, which you can externalize if you like, but I'm just going to keep it in the document for the tutorial's sake. I'm going to target the body element and I'm going to give it two properties, margin 0 pixels and background of black. Then I'm going to target this banner in the CSS. You can do that in two ways. You can put in div and then target the ID of banner, or you can just target the ID of banner. Maybe you'll have it in a paragraph element or some other kind of container, but I'll just target the div explicitly. This just helps me know that this rule, this CSS rule, is targeting a div in the document, but you can do it any way you want it. I'm going to make the width equal to 100%, so it goes all the way across the whole page. Then I'll set the height equal to the height of my little tile. And let me show you the tile before we go any further. So here in my graphics editing program, I have a brick tile that's a repeating tile, and it's important if you want things to animate smoothly to have a repeating tile that has a repeating design. That way it's seamless as it moves. You can see its width is 300 and the height is also 300. So it's just a square. And these dimensions, 300 by 300, are going to come into play within our code a little bit. Now I'll set the margin 0 pix auto, just in case we wanted to have it in a centered container. But since it's going to span across the whole width of the document, you really don't have to have this property in place. Only if you want it to be a centered banner or something like that. And if you're going to have a banner, you can also set the overflow to hidden. That way you won't see any content or background outside of the space of your container. And if you're going to go across the whole page like I'm going to do here, you can just leave this property out also. Okay, now we're going to set the background property. I'm going to make that equal to URL of my brick tile image, which is a JPEG. Then I'll set the background repeat property as repeat X. So that repeat X means repeat along the horizontal axis. Repeat Y would be repeating along the vertical axis, up and down. Repeat X is left and right, the horizontal axis. Now we're going to set our animation property. And this is what actually animates that background position for that little brick tile background. We'll name the animation animate background. We'll make it animate in a linear fashion. We'll set the animation duration to 15 seconds, which is sort of like the speed. And I'll adjust that to show you how it changes the speed. And then we'll set it to infinite. So the animation will just keep repeating and never stop. It will loop. Now I'm going to pop in the keyframes rule that will set up this animate background animation. So we have a keyframes rule. Its name is animate background. You can see that we're referencing that right here in the animation property. So keyframes, animate background, and what we're going to do is go from background position 0 pixels to background position 300 pixels. And I'm going to give you guys links to pages, or I'll show you pages where you can study in depth the background position property, animation property, and all of the other properties here. I'll show you a link to where you can study all of the CSS properties that I'm using here. That way you can understand what I'm doing with these numbers. Now at this point, you have a completed effect. You have your brick wall or whatever kind of repeating tile that you want moving to the left. If I want that to move to the right instead of the left, I'll just remove this negative value and make it a positive value, 300 pixels. You can see that it moves the other direction now. And let me see, I think I can repeat both X and Y axes by just putting repeat here. And then I can put a 0 pixels in front of the 300 pixels and then 0 pixels here. And now we should have an animation that goes along the vertical axis. Let's check it out. You see? Now the brick wall is moving down. If we want the brick wall to move up, then we can put negative 300 pixels here, and it will be moving up instead, or animating up. Does that make sense? And remember, I'm going to show you the background position property, the document that explains that in depth, so you can understand why I'm using these numbers in this way. Now let's go ahead and put some content in this div and show you how easy it is to layer your content right in there. So just as you normally would inside of a div, you put some content. It can be any elements or text that you want in there. And then I'll put a little CSS rule targeting this H1 element that's inside my banner. So div, banner, target, child, H1 element inside. And I'll give it a color of white and padding of 50 pixels. And let's see what that gives us. So you see, now we have a brick wall moving up or any direction that we want it to move. And then we have content sitting right above it or layered above it. And things are not really layered because we're using the background position property to animate the background for that div. So the content can just lay in there like normal, and you don't have to layer anything in any special kind of way. Now let's see if I put a value here also of 300 pixels. Let's see what kind of effect we get. Now we have the wall moving diagonally. It's moving up and to the right. If we want it to move down and to the left or any direction that we want it to go, all we have to do is play with these numbers. So I'll just leave that on 0, but I just wanted to add that little tip. That way you can get diagonal animations or animations that go any direction that you want. So what if I change the width of this banner to maybe 600 pixels? Now you can see the animation is contained within that space. Let me make it go to the along the horizontal axis instead. See? You can contain the animation within any size container that you want, or you can span across the whole page. So I'll just leave this on 100% width, but just keep in mind that you can contain that animation in any size container that you need. And that's pretty much it. Now you can create your own repeating tiles within your favorite graphics editor. You can find some online to get some inspiration and ideas, but you don't want to just take those. You really want to create your own. That way you don't get in trouble for using other people's copyright images. And if you guys want, I'll do another tutorial showing how you can animate multiple backgrounds within your container to have a sort of parallax effect, to where one background image would move at a certain pace, at a certain rate or certain speed, and then the other background image, since we can have multiple background images inside of our containers in CSS3, that means we can put multiple images. So basically above this brick wall, I could have another PNG transparent background image that moves at a different speed along with that, creating a sort of parallax effect. If you guys want to see a tutorial like that, just let me know and it'll be no problem for me to do it. Now let's adjust the speed of that. So if we go into our animation settings, which I'm also going to show you all of the in-depth details about the animation property so you can learn more about that. But let me just change the speed to maybe 5 and we'll see that the wall increases its rate of movement. It's going much quicker now. So make this a lower number if you want it to go fast, or a higher number if you want to slow it down. And that's pretty much it. I'll leave you guys to it to experiment and have some fun. And like I said, if you want to see how to move multiple images within this container background and create a sort of parallax effect, just let me know and I'll try and rig that up and show you the code example for that too. I almost forgot to show you the references that I was talking about. First, let me go to the CSS video tutorials and I'll show you the old way. It's in the animation rigging section. Animated repeating tile background keyframes tutorial. This is the old way that I used to do it many years ago, which is not as easy to rig up and it's not as intuitive and it's just a lot more bulky and cumbersome, and you really don't want to use this approach anymore. But a few of you might remember seeing this tutorial, and you can see that we're layering a div that's a banner backdrop and then layering the banner content on top of that, which is not the smartest way to go about it in 2016. So for 2016, we want to use the animate the background position property. You can see we're using keyframes here, but we're not doing it as cleverly in this old tutorial. So that's why I'm updating it with new, smarter code. And then you can go into the CSS Properties section and you'll see the animation property is here. So you can learn about the how you can rig up these animations using the shorthand animation property. This is the shorthand animation property. But then you have all the longhand animation properties. And you can use all of those instead if you like animation delay, animation direction, duration, the fill mode, iteration count, animation name, the play state, and the timing function. So instead of using the shorthand animation property like I did in the tutorial, you can use the longhand properties if you want. That's no problem. And then we had the background settings, which was the background position property. That's the one that that we used in the tutorial to move the to animate the backgrounds within the container. So you can use several different approaches to positioning your background images within your container. What I used was the length. That way I can use numbers. I can animate these numbers, which is, so basically the 30 pixels would be your offset left and right, and then your 10 pixels would be your offset top and bottom. So that's your horizontal axis and then your vertical axis. You can also use percentages, and you can animate these numbers as well if you want to use percentages. And then finally you can use keywords. You might find it easier just to use the numbers, the length numbers, or percentage for animation purposes. So that's pretty much it. You can find all of that within the CSS tab here. There's all the properties and then the video tutorials if you want to look at other different things that are unrelated to this. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this exercise, and like I said, if you want to see how to animate multiple background images within the one container or in the document body itself, creating a sort of parallax effect where multiple images move at different speeds, just let me know and I can rig that up and show you guys how that works too. If you have any questions or concerns, you can leave them in the comment section of the video. I'll see you next time.